Hello, my name is Ben Williams. I am a broker in El Paso, Texas, and I run a team called the War Team. And I have a class that we're going to be doing and talking about the amendment process and also about how to actually do an amendment. We have people in our session live here, and we're going to jump into this. Welcome, everybody. So this is what we're going to do. How I'm going to break this down is essentially going to be in a way that I'm going to talk about the process from the time that the inspection is over, right? And then I'm going to jump into the amendment, and along this journey, the key things you need to be thinking about. You have the example of amendment. It's the amendment from hell, right? And I'm going to talk about each one of those items. And on the back of it, look on the back. It has some great thing about jointly. It extends. If you overwrite something, it automatically extends for you, which is great. So I'm going to talk about those items on the front and talk about on the back. And we're going to break down what you can and what you can't write in here, right? What you can and what you can't write in here. So that being said, let's jump in here. Let me give the people in virtual land the amendment. Okay, we'll put these guys in here. I got to close it first. Carmelo.
Yeah.
I promise not to ask you to read.
Hey.
You just made my day, Ben. You just made my day.
I'm glad that we can find humor in my disabilities, Amanda.
Hey, Carmelo, I promise, we will not ask you to read this time.
You know what? All right.
All right, let me get the amendment for you guys. Okay, everybody in virtual land should have it. All right. So if you're in virtual land, take that, download it, and we're going to be working from that, talk about a lot of different things. Okay, let's hop in this thing. Did we admit her in there? Okay. All right, let's jump into this. Home inspection is assessing the property's condition to identify any health, safety, or major issues that may exist. Do you have to have a home inspection on a resale property? No, you do not. It's totally to the discretion of the buyer, right? The policies that we have here in this place and in my company, if a buyer elects on a resale property not to have one or a new construction, there's a form that I want you guys to sign to have them saying, hey, I do not elect to have a home inspection. You have to have that. If it does not matter, if someone says, hey, I do not want the home inspection, your next workflow is, okay, let me get the document that says you do not want a home inspection. Okay, has to happen. Once the home inspection happens, if we want to amend or modify the contract, because right now in the resale contract, it states, hey, the buyer accepted as is, but the buyer is allowed to do a home inspection or any inspections that they want, as long as it's approved by, as long as it's a licensed inspector from TREC. That's the key element there. You can't have Jose, Pookie, Romeo, John not licensed to go do the home inspection and not be valid. So if you have buyers say, oh, I got a cousin wants to, okay, that's cool, but it won't measure towards any of the modifications or anything like that in terms of the amendment. We have to have that process done by a licensed inspector. The amendment itself modifies anything that's in the contract. We're going to talk about a lot of different modifications that can happen in the contract, which part of it is price change, repairs, or any adjustments to closing, any other things like that. What you can't do, if you stay with me on this one, what you can't do is practice law on these amendments. And it's so easily that you could, that I'm going to talk about this in such a way that you won't mess this up no more, or even try to attempt to practice law, because essentially it comes down to these two things. You can reiterate what's already in the contract sometimes on these amendments. You can change some of the variables and numbers in the contract, right? But when you start to change the contract, or change anything of the left and right limits of this contract, you are practicing law. You could be practicing law, right? So when we get into this process, that's the biggest thing. If you get to questions like that, you need to ask me. Even with I know a lot of times we have situations where people want to, but I'm giving you an example, is we have situations where people want to do escrow holdbacks. At closing, seller to give $5,000 to contract X, contractor Y, from the seller's proceeds and all this other stuff, right? And for the most part, it's allowed to do that, but what you really don't see behind the scenes, when we start talking about those modifications, there's a actual agreement that is signed on the title company about an escrow holdback agreement. So we don't get to see it, right? But I'm telling you what's happening on the title side. You may put something like that in there, but they have another document that they go put inside the file that states seller and buyer agreed for this type of agreement. We don't get to see it, but we just start putting stuff in there, because when you start doing stuff like that with escrow holdbacks, it's got to say, how is it supposed to be distributed? When does it have to be distributed? What happens if it's not distributed? All these things is not in that one little paragraph on paragraph 10. There's another agreement behind that, right? So next, let's get into this a little bit more. When the inspection happens, typically it occurs within the option period. So if your option period is between 5 to 12 days, which is the norm, right? 5 to 12 days is probably the norm on a resale property. It should be done typically within the first 2 to 3 days of the contract. The sooner, the better. Now let's talk about this for a second. Do you have to have escrow, earnest money, and option money in before you do an inspection? No. Okay. No, you don't. All right. You don't. The simple rule is, yeah, it's a nice to have that in there. But if you're on the listing side and you executed a contract today, and the buyer's agent call you, say, hey, we want to get an inspector out there at 3 p.m., there's nothing in the contract that says that's not allowed. Okay. Now, in order to have the ability to exercise the option period, that has to be turned in, but the contract really states that option money and earnest money has to be in how many days? 3. Okay. So just because the buyer's agent is Johnny on the spot and want to do the inspection the same day or the next day and they haven't turned nothing in, you as a listing agent, you can't really stop that. All right. There's nothing in the contract that states otherwise. It actually states they have 3 days. Okay. And so keep that in mind. That's one of the typical things that happens on the listing side. I get questions, and I'm going to try and field this class based on the questions I receive a lot of times. Cause I get, hey, they want to do the inspection and we just executed today. That's totally fine. Look from the other lens. You're the buyer's agent.
One time a lady, the same day that she did the inspection, she didn't want the house, but she didn't want to pay the option either. So
We're going to talk about that too. So let's break that down. Buyers, on the buyer side, you have a buyer that wants to do the inspection that day and they do it and they don't want the house. They need to pay the option period. They need to pay the option. That's the way it has to be. It was Melinda, and she had a situation where they had put 2 offers in on a property or something like that, and one offer got accepted, and then the next day the other offer got accepted. Where you're on the hook for 2 option period monies, and then the buyer decides which house they're gonna pursue. Okay, got a question right there?
Yeah, so it can happen, like a buyer can put offers.
All right. Yes. Can it? Yes.
Because I didn't know that, one time they asked me, that's why I'm asking you.
Yes. It's easier. Sometime when you're doing this business, you're gonna find out it's easier to write 2 offers versus 1. Okay. And this is not the class for it right now, but sometimes you're gonna get to the last 2 houses and they both love it, and they both love both houses, and they're stuck on stupid, right? And they're saying, okay, I don't know which one to choose. Hey, let's write offers on both of them. See which one we get. Okay. If you're neck and neck with that. You can do that. The practice has to be, and they got to understand, worst case scenario, both offers get accepted at the same time. Well, Mr. Buyer, you have to pay both options, and then you're going to choose which one you're going to pursue, because we got to pay both options in order to pursue this one that you want, in order to get out of the one you don't want. Okay. So can you do it? Yes. During COVID, we were writing 5, 6 different offers at the same time on 5, 6 different houses at the same time in the same day sometime, because it was so hard just to get one house. So we had a practice back then and there. We say, hey, look, we're going to write offers on 3 or 4 homes and see which one we get. 3 or 4 homes. If they got accepted, which most of the time it didn't, you only got one accept or whatever, then you would withdraw your offer on the other 3 without paying the option money because it didn't get accepted. Okay. So if it don't get accepted, you just put the withdrawal in there and you're totally fine. There's no monies have to be exchanged. But if they all got accepted, 5 offers on 5 different houses and they all got accepted, your buyer needs to pay all 5 options monies. Choose one, lose the other $400, and you got to pursue that one. Can it be done? Yes. Is it a best practice? Probably not. I wouldn't really recommend doing that because a lot of times buyers don't understand it, and when you explain it to them, they still don't understand it. Okay. But good question. Eileen, I had 3 accepted at the same time all at once during COVID. Oh yeah, we remember those days, the good days. All right. Hold on, we go get these questions. Let's get another mic. Go ahead.
What happens if you're the listing agent and the buyer agent loses your number and forgets they don't have to deposit option money? Like,
What?
like basically you're the listing agent, you accepted an offer. They never went to deposit. And then they basically, you keep reminding them and they just decided we don't have to deposit their option money. They terminated. I accept an offer. 3 days in, they didn't deposit earnest, they didn't deposit option, reminded them. Then they submitted a termination, still no option, kept reminding them, and then they just lost your number.
The contract kicks in. They are still on the hook for performance.
But they terminated
But when did they terminate?
with, according to them, within the option period, but they didn't deposit option money.
They'd be subject to the paragraph 15. Because paragraph 15, if you had an option that they was supposed to be there, but you never turned the option money in, they don't have an option. If they terminate it, then you're subject to paragraph 15 and paragraph 18, all these different things that involves attorneys. So if your seller wanted to pursue it and go down that route, say, hey, you were supposed to close on this house, and all of the effects that happen for them not closing in the legal judicial system, they're subject to that.
So if the seller is okay with letting it go, then as a listing agent, you should just let it go?
Yeah, it's not us. We get caught up in agent issues when that's a buyer and a seller issue, okay? And you want to make sure you're not in agent issues. Agent issues happen, they shouldn't happen, and they ruin deals, okay? So typically within the first 2 to 3 days of the contract, you should be trying to do that. I would like to say the best practice here, what I want people to understand is when you go on a contract, especially with a resale property, there's no reason to wait. Let's try and get the party started. The sooner the better. I have a rule of thumb with any property I go on a contract that I'm going to try and have the inspection done within the first 48 hours. All right. I set the expectation with my buyer on day 1, you need to have option money and earnest money ready to go. That is before, right? Before we execute. If I know we're going to execution, I'm already telling the buyer, hey, tomorrow I will be at your house to pick up cashier's check, whatever. Yes, I go pick it up. Yes, I go deliver it. The reason I go deliver it is because I know it got there on time. I get a receipt at the close at the title company that says, hey, option money and earnest money was turned in at this time. And I know it's in the time allowed for the 3 days. If you're allowing your buyers to go do that, you are absolutely wrong, in my opinion. Just the way we practice. You full-time, full service, do it the right way. Now, if the buyer is out of town, that's going to be the question. Buyer is out of town. All right. I feel as though you coordinate with the title company as to how they want to receive the money, usually a wire or whatever that is, and you coordinate that. And then the title company at that point in time will start to do their thing with your buyer to orchestrate this wire. Okay. You may not be involved. Actually, you can't be involved when they send the wire instructions, stuff like that. But in that case, if it is like that, it is your responsibility to make sure it's orchestrated and done in such a way. 50. So I lose. That's your, did you take the money already? Oh, I can say that was quick. That was quick. All right. Oh my goodness.
I put it in my pocket.
All right. I was like, man, okay. Okay. Inspection responsibilities. The buyer is responsible for scheduling. However, the agent should facilitate. Now, I want to explain this. They are responsible. In the word facilitate, how do we facilitate? What's the ways we facilitate? They are responsible, yes, because they're buying a house, but it says we facilitate. What do I mean by that?
You provide the inspection options.
Go ahead. Who was that? Eileen?
Yeah, I just said that you give them the inspection options. So you give them 3 different inspectors to choose from. If you have knowledge of how much they cost, you can give them an idea of what that would cost for each one, but coordinate with the inspection company still for them in case they can't, things like that.
I like everything you said, except for letting them schedule it. What I like to do is say, hey, buyer, we would like to have this done within this time or that time. Do you want to be there, not want to be there? Explain to them what the process is, what they'll receive. They're going to get the report. They're going to get pictures. You're more than welcome to be there, Mr. Buyer. All right. I recommend that you do be there. I would like to make sure we get this within the next 48 hours. That's the conversation I have. What works best for you? Monday at 2 or Tuesday at 5 or something like that, to make sure we need to do it in that manner. That's the only thing I would change what you're saying, Eileen, because I think if you would let them schedule, they don't understand the sense of urgency that we need to have. All right. So that's the only difference I'll say in terms of that. She's totally 100% right. The only thing I'm going to add, just because the fact of the sense of urgency, I like to do it within the first 48 hours. And I really, in the terms of facilitation, I'm going to probably sit there and say, hey, we can do this or we can do that. Go ahead.
With that said, is there not something that can come back to you because you're not giving them the option to choose an inspector?
I give them the option to choose. Everything she said is still true. She says she gives three options and stuff like that. That's all true. Everything she said, the only thing different in my opinion, and we got a lot of new agents in here, I don't want them to feel as though, hey, the buyer just scheduled it at their leisure. Okay. Because I don't
let them tell you what inspector they want and you call that inspector.
Correct. I'll give them 3 inspectors, maybe 4 inspectors. My actual verbiage to them, hey, look them up on the reviews online. If they come back and ask me, who do I recommend or who I work with or something like that, I'll even say the most times in our office, we work with X, Y, and Z. And I still don't choose. I don't say integrity. I don't say that. Okay. Even if they do ask me, I'll say typically in our office, we see X, Y, and Z. And even then, hey, do your research and tell me who you want to go with. Okay. The reason I do that is because once you say, hey, do this inspector, choose this one, you're almost placing yourself in the realm of liability if there's something's missed with that inspector or something is a problem with that inspector. So don't ever do that as much as you like. Okay. Even with this contest going on, I still want you guys to do the same thing. If they happen to choose AAA, great. If they don't, keep it rolling. All right. Hey, look, a reminder about the response time. So I think we talked about that. Inspection reports can take 24 to 48 hours. Most inspectors have some portal online. Once you pay, that's how the report is rendered. I'm not sure if there's still reports being issued out physically. I haven't seen that in quite some time. Can they get it physically? I guess they could if that's the way they want it, but I haven't seen it lately. It's usually online. Do actually remind them about the option period and what that means. That's really important. I think it's important to say here, when you do choose an option period time, I think it's really important to make sure that you understand if the utilities are on or they're off. That could make the option period be longer. If they're off and you choose 5 days, the likelihood of you getting that inspection done in 5 days is probably not high. So that's where you want to make sure you ensure what you're doing. Sometimes when you do this, you look at about 10, 15 properties. They want to choose property number 1. You don't remember if the utilities are on. You may have to go back over to property number 1 and verify if the utilities are on before you write that contract to make sure you do the right amount of days. All right, because at the end of the day, if you don't, and you choose 7 days or 5 days and those utilities not on, who's going to be looking stupid? You as the buyer's agent. All right, typically. All right, keep that in mind. Let's keep on going here.
You are able to tell the seller, hey, make sure that the utilities are on.
You're not going to tell the seller anything. You'll tell the listing agent.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You can ask the listing, even if you ask the listing agent, are utilities on? If they say yes and they're wrong, who's going to be sitting there explaining? It's not going to be the listing agent. You got to explain that to your buyers.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've had one turn them off during the process.
Yeah, we've been there. Talk about major issues. Major issues include, in my opinion, major issues are the roof, foundation, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and structural. That's the major issues in my opinion. Everything outside of that's going to probably be secondary issues. Doesn't mean that the buyer doesn't want them fixed. Doesn't mean that they can't get fixed. When I talk about roof, foundation, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and structural, those are the big ticket items that could stop the process. Those are deal breakers if you have problems with those, right? And the way I explain it to the buyers is I'll explain it prior to even going out on showing homes that these are the major topics that we're going to be looking at. But I also tell them, hey, look, stucco stuff, doorknob missing, or little stuff like that, probably not going to get repaired. More than likely, maybe not. Okay. We can put a request in for anything you want or to get repaired, but there's nothing nowhere in the contract the seller has to fix anything on a resale property. There's nothing in the contract, nowhere, absolutely nowhere, that says a seller has to fix anything on a property. I say that again because you need to be speaking that to the buyers. Everything at that point is negotiable. And you got to imagine from the seller's perspective, sometime they've been living there fine, safe, everything's good. They've been living there for 10, 15 years. And all of a sudden this buyer comes in on one day, gives a 30-page report with all these things wrong. There's an emotional thing there. They're going to be like, how dare you? There's nothing wrong with this closet door, even though we've been fumbling around with it. That's minor. They're going to also sit there and say, hey, we just gave you $7,000 in closing costs. Okay. Now you want us to fix this. Now you want us to do that. Now you want to do this, whatever. All right. I'm just telling you the emotional roller coaster the sellers go through. And in our part, if you're working with a buyer or seller, we got to think about those things too as well. We're supposed to be the calm professional, try and put the hand on the shoulder, say, hey, look, Mr. Seller, this is what's going on. Hey, Mr. Buyer, this is what's happening. All right. We can't get emotional with them. You're going to find out the best situations in here to control this whole situation. You're trying to find win-win scenarios, common ground. Nothing about being fair. Okay. If you're going to do this business and be at a high level at this business, you're going to remove that word fair from your vocabulary. You're going to say, okay, where is common ground? Where can we find win-win situations? If you take that mentality, you're going to do great at this business. You're going to do amazing at this business if you can just find common ground. Things that a buyer or things that a seller is not worried about, you probably shouldn't be worried about yourself. If they're not bringing stuff to the table about this, that, and the third, you don't have to bring it there. You're not going to live in that house. Okay, understand that, right? So that's the biggest mistake I think new agents make oftentimes is when they bring themselves into the equation. And over time, it's going to create problems with contracts. Everybody with me on that one? Okay. I can't stress that one enough because early on, when you first start, I can see it. I can see it when people first start the business, opposed to Brenda's questions are going to be totally different to me because she's been doing this for a while. She gonna be like, hey, I don't give a damn what they want to do. Is we go find common ground. When I'm talking to new agents, it's always the same. They're all, I'm like, is that your issue or the buyer or seller issue? Which one is it? Okay. And sometimes you got to step outside of that. I understand it. Don't get me wrong. When I first started, I was the same way. I was like, that's not fair. Why would they want that? They should get this. I'm putting myself in it. So I'm guilty of it. It took me a while to understand I don't live in this house. We're finding common ground. Okay. So keep that in mind. They want our opinions, but our opinions have to be in a way that says, okay, hey, look, I always talk about the major stuff: roof, foundation, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, structural. I will give my personal opinion on those 5. All the other stuff, I'm like, let's find common ground. Let's find common ground. Safety issues, hazards such as gas leaks, missing GFCIs or exposed wires that need immediate action. Those things are safety issues. Those things should be addressed. Code violations, deferred maintenance, things, the minor stuff, you're trying to find common ground. Let's go to the next one here. Any comments or anything somebody want to share? Communicate with client. I think it's really important to explain the report clearly. When you explain in the report, if you're getting into stuff that you don't know, you don't have to be the expert at it. If you look at the report for the first time, and sometimes when you look at those reports, it's foreign language to a lot of people. So you may have to get a couple reports over time and start asking people, hey, what does this mean? If you really want to get in the weeds of it, who should you call? Inspector. Okay. Pick up the phone, call the inspector, say, hey, really explain to me, what does this really mean? Okay. What are the effects of it? All right. Why did you say recommend see structural engineer? What made you say that? Okay. So you can understand it. So you can explain the report accurately to your client. Everybody with me on that one? There's oftentimes that I get these questions. I'm looking at the report and I'm like, okay, let's look at it. And even me today, I will still go back and say, okay, hey, look, hey, Mr. Inspector, please explain what the heck. And she was in our company before, and now she is coming back. This is a surprise. Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right. Christina, hey. Okay. We're running it back. Thank you. Thank you. You could have called me and let me know.
I wanted to surprise you. That must be more fun.
I see. Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back. All right. Let's keep on going. All right. So explain the report clearly. Set reasonable expectations. Okay. This is critical. Probably the most important thing. Reasonable expectations. They're going to ask you, what should I ask to be fixed? I stay with the big 5 up there and safety issues. Big 5 and safety issues. I keep it very clear, very detailed to this, that. Outside of that, I'm pretty much not going to recommend too many other things to be fixed. Now, we can ask for a price reduction. We can ask for more closing costs to compensate some of these things. But for the most part, for its actual repairs, I'm staying with the big 5 and safety issues. Nothing outside of that. Anybody else got some rules for what they do? I'm going to ask Eileen.
About the expectations?
Yes. What do you say for your expectations for everybody else to hear?
I let them know that the inspector is going to tell you everything that's wrong with the house, and just to expect that's normal. That doesn't mean that it's not a good house and it's not viable, I say, for buyers. Sellers, they basically just wait for the inspection and repair amendments. So I give them the expectations that the buyer's going to more than likely ask for repairs, and that we don't have to do any repairs, that we can give credits. And it's up to the seller. Some sellers like to do them. So I always tell them that I would rather them ask for a credit, because then they can have control of who they hire to fix these issues, and they have control of who's doing the work, and they don't have to rely on the seller's contractors doing it wrong or doing it half-assed or cutting corners. And so that's usually what I like to do, is negotiate price reductions or credits to closing costs. It just makes it easier on both sides.
Great point. Brenda, since you're in the room, anything you want to add?
Most of what Eileen said, but I usually tell them your concern should be with the major and safety items. And there's 3 things that can happen. Either the seller will repair some or none of those items. They may want to provide a credit, or they may not want to do anything. So at this point, depending on how much you like the home, your financial situation, start thinking about what you would do in the event that something like that would happen.
I'm gonna elaborate a little bit on that as well. Sometimes when I tell people, I'll say, okay, look, what are the items, if they can't be repaired or replaced, that's gonna stop you from moving forward? I need to know those before I start to negotiate. That's a good question to ask. Once the report comes out, I just need to make sure, because I know that I need to know how to negotiate for you. You got this long list of stuff that you told me that you won't fix. 86 items, right? Of these 86 items that you want me to put on this repair amendment, which ones of these 86 items, if you couldn't get repaired or replaced, that you're walking away from? Ask that question. Hey, item 6 and item 8 and item 10, right? I need to know that, because if we don't address 8, 6, and 10, we know we're walking away. Everybody with me? All right, make sure you ask those questions. I think that's critical to know before you even pick up the phone and start talking to the listing agent. As a buyer's agent, keep in mind every conversation. I don't care how much you are friends with the listing agent, or how good you think you are, or how cool y'all think y'all are. From the moment you pick up the phone, everything is a negotiation. Everything is a negotiation. All right, so keep that in mind. Sometimes I frame stuff in such a way, and I'll say something. If I'm on the listing side, I like to have the what if conversation. What if, I haven't talked to my seller yet, but what if I could get the seller to do X, Y, and Z? Would your buyer be okay to move forward? I don't know if they're going to do that, but if I could get this, would your buyer be okay? Can you check? Buyer's agent go back, have a conversation. Yeah, that'll work. Guess what? I'm going over to talk to the seller now. Hey, seller, these right here is going to move the deal forward. X, Y, and Z. How do you feel about that? Okay. Now there's 30 items they requested, right? But I give the scenario like, okay, if I can get X, Y, and Z done, or whatever it looks like, how would that work? How would your buyer feel? Okay. Would they move forward? Think about what you're going to say, and think about how you're going to say it, because you're giving the buyer's agent or the listing agent the language you want them to use with their prospective client. So frame it in such a way that's going to make sense, that say, okay, hey, look, what if this happened? Or what if that happened? You think they would do this? You think they would do that? Before we paper it up, okay? Before we paper it up. Everybody with me on that one?
Yes, sir. What if it's part of the big 5 that they don't want to fix?
If there's major roof issues and we come out and it's just evident, hey, look, Mr. Buyer, you said if this roof ain't fixed, like we got to replace the roof. If they don't replace the roof, or willing to try and replace the roof, we're terminating. Okay, it's clear cut to me. I need to, because I need to move on to the next house. So if that's the case, don't drag misery out. Let's terminate and let's get to the next house. You got a job to find in the house, right? On the other side of the listing side, hey, Mr. Seller, the way I understand it, if you're not willing to repair or replace the roof, or at least try to do that and go through your insurance to do it, this buyer's out. What do you want to do? Let's be clear. Hey, Mr. Seller, seller says, no, I'm not doing that. Cool, no problem. Hey, buyer's agent, seller's not doing it. And be clear, just be straight. This is, you'll get the agent on the side. That's not fair. I understand how you do it. I can appreciate your passion. seller's not going to move forward with any repairs on the roof. Just stay right in there. You don't have to be emotional about it. Totally get what you're saying. I understand it. Man, I know this sucks. Seller's not going forward with the roof. Put it back on them. Okay. So you see what I'm saying there? You got to make sure you stay where you're supposed to be, but you got to know how to be the agent for your prospective client and make sure you understand exactly what they want and make sure they understand the consequences. I got to tell the seller, hey, if the buyer doesn't go forward, we're canceling this contract. You good to go? They'll probably go terminate. Yeah, I'm not doing it. Cool, no problem. Hey, we're not doing the roof. We're not doing that. Make sure you have that conversation so they know what the consequences are. Hey, just yesterday, Eileen had a situation yesterday. She was totally clear. She made sure herself like, hey, this is where we at. Okay. She made changes to a contract 3 or 4 days prior to closing. You can request repairs or changes to a contract right up to the day before closing. There's nothing stopping you from doing it, even though you have an option period. If a buyer wants to try and do an amendment for repairs 1 day before closing, can they do it? Sure.
Yes.
There's nothing stopping it. There's nothing stopping that whatsoever. A lot of times when you knew, you probably say, oh, you can only request repairs during the option period. Absolutely not. It can happen all the way through the contract. Okay.
I think that an important thing when you're representing the seller is if you get into a situation where your seller is unwilling to do what you're referencing, the roof, right? And if the buyer's agent already provided you the inspection report, we have to educate our sellers that if we fall out of contract with this one and we move forward, and we have to update our seller's disclosure and potentially have to fix those items anyway.
Yes. So what she's saying is after we have this full inspection report, it is a requirement that once you have an inspection report, after the fact, there's an actual form for the seller's disclosure, amendment to the seller's disclosure and update, and then you have to publish that. You have to post that. So if you do get the full report and you don't close on the listing side of the house, then you have to tell your sellers to modify the seller's disclosure, which is amended, and let people know that you do have an inspection. Hence why it's a perfect time to talk about this. Hence why I don't want to receive the full inspection report as a listing agent. That's the reason I don't want to receive it. I know it's common practice here for buyer's agents sending the full inspection report. It's the norm here. If I'm on the listing side, I'm going to tell the buyer's agent, hey, look for the repairs. Just send me pictures and screenshots or whatever. I don't want the full report. I will tell every buyer's agent that, right? I don't want the full report on the listing side unless my seller wants it. But usually I've told my seller why we don't want the report. Because if we get the full report, we got to disclose that report to other buyers. Now, if they send it and the buyer's agent send it, you got it. So if you do fall out of the contract, you have to make those modifications. And it's on the buyer side of that, the buyer's agent, that's your call. Maybe you ask the listing agent, hey, do you want the full report? If they say they want it, send it. Okay, totally fine. Do you just want the pages and, that we found all the stuff on and pictures? Cool, yeah, just give me the pictures and I'm fine. All right, so give them the option. I think that's reasonable in my book. But thanks, Amanda. Thank you for mentioning that because that's really important.
If they only send you the pages and they don't fix anything in the seller's disclosure, or what are we supposed to say?
Nothing, because you don't have the full report. Yeah, you don't have the full report. There's nothing you have to change or modify. Okay, how to write the repair amendment. I'm going to break from this class and we're going to go into another class. I'm going to pull this up because the way I wanted to do this was to talk about what I sent you guys. All right, so let's pull this other one up. Okay, so this is the amendment to the contract. You guys have a one that's filled out. So the first section here that we want to talk about, if you're looking at this, is it's the TXR 1903, right? The first section is all about changing price or cash portion payable. That's what this is about. if we're gonna change any portion of the cash portion, we're gonna change any portion of the financing, we're gonna change anything to the total price. And the first section here, that's where that's gonna be made at. I gave you an example on your sheet. If you look at that, if you change the financing or change the third party or whatever case may be, you do that, you got to come back and you got to change the stuff. Everybody with me on that one? Any questions about section 1? Let's move to section 2. Section 2, section for repairs. All right, it says, and somebody read section 2 for me, not Carmelo. Somebody read section 2 for me.
In addition to any repairs and treatments otherwise required by the contract, sellers at seller's expense shall complete the following repairs and treatments. Notice paragraph 7 of the contract governs the completion, delivery, documentation, and transfer of warranties of repairs and treatments.
All right. So I gave you an example, and I think the great thing about jointly, if you have a long list of repairs or something like that, or modification, it automatically gives you a second sheet right in there, right? So on the back side, I give you an example of how I think you should write this. I give the example, hey, inspection date, dated such and such. Everybody see that? And then I give the item number from the repair, right? And this is where I would send the page number. And then I actually specify repair or replace. So what you see there, you will see section, somebody read the first one. Maybe I'll put it up here.
See inspection dated 8/27/2025, page 3, mold mildew investigations requested and results rendered. Page 10.
So go ahead.
Page 10, tiles cracked.
So in that mold, because sometimes mold comes up, the inspector put a comment in about, hey, look, observation of mold. This was in there, right? And I did that purposely. So the buyer, of course, saw the observation of mold, but the inspector can't really determine if it really is. It has to be inspected. So in that case, I say, hey, we want request an inspection and those reports rendered to us. Because now we got to determine if it's really mold or not. All right, so that's one example. And I put these examples there based on some of the conversations I've had with some of the agents in the office. What about mold? All right, you got to get it tested. All right, and the inspector is not the person that can test the mold. So we're going to tell the seller, hey, we want it tested, we want to investigate it, and we want those results rendered. Yes, sir.
So I have a question. We had got an inspection. They
Pass
said
the
they-
mic down to him.
We had an inspection report. The seller said they fixed the roof, and then 3 days later, it still was a leak. What you supposed to do about that? 3 days after closing, but they said they fixed it, but it was not fixed properly. So what you supposed to do after that?
So if you do this right, that roofer should have given some type of warranty or some type of guarantee or something like that, right? And it should have been written in the invoice. And it starts talking about that whole portion about transfer of warranties and repairs and treatments. That's exactly what it's saying. So in respect to that, if whoever rendered this doggone repair, so in that invoice, there should be some language about some warranties being transferred over to the buyer or some type of guarantee, 6 months, whatever. And so there's the little small nuances as a buyer's agent that you got to echo, hey, if we're doing roof repairs, we want to make sure we get an invoice, and whoever that person is doing, the contractor, we want to see what guarantee they're going to get for how long. That don't happen a lot. And there's the difference between good and great, because you won't have that problem. Let's just say, for example, if that was the case, and in that invoice, there was some guarantee of 6 months or some guarantee of 3 months. Now you have some place to go back to and say, hey, the roofer guaranteed his work for X amount of months. Hey, whoever you get to do this roof inspection or roof repairs, can we get some type of warranty on the roof, on the work? And that's the reason we do these classes. That's a good example. Great question. Now go to the next one, Marty.
Page 10, tiles cracked / missing, replace.
Okay, roof tiles, was cracked, whatever. We want that replaced. Everybody see the difference? So that's when I use the words repair or replace. Everybody with me? Keep on going, go to the next one.
Page 18, sealing, water stain / minor damage request. The source of leakage identified and corrected and the sealing repainted.
And one important thing about that is if a VA appraiser comes and sees that there was a roof leak, that'll stop everything. He'll want that remediated and taken care of.
Glad you brought that out. And repaint it. So in that one, we're saying, hey, we want it identified, we want it corrected, and we want the inside to be painted. Now, stuff like that, you got to be mindful of that, because if you do have a VA loan, now we want that done when? Before the appraisal. And you have to communicate that with the buyer's agent and listing agent. Y'all got to be on the same page with that one. All right. Hey, this one right here, of all the repairs, even though we have until closing date, that one right here before the appraisal is done, I need that one done so the appraiser comes out there and makes sure that's fixed. So if we got to break some of the stuff down and identify it, you got to have that conversation back and forth, dialogue back and forth with the buyer's agent and the listing agent. Everybody with me on that one? And that's just working together. You don't want to be fighting with the agent, right? It's the worst thing you can do is be fighting with the agent. You want to bring it down. Hey guys, let's work together. I'm still going to represent my client. You still represent yours, right? But that would be something I would sit there with the buyer's agent or the listing agent, say, hey, look, we got to get this done. It's a VA loan. The appraiser is going to be ordered. We got to get this one done beforehand. All right.
Page 42, AC not cooling, upstairs repaired. Page 49, interior sink does not drain properly, repaired. And page 53, flue exhaust not connected.
All right. And you could go on and on with the repairs, but I'm just giving you an example about repair, replace, investigate, reports, warranties, and things of that nature. So when you're doing this from both angles, you want to have that. And I think even the warranties on the side of the listing agent, you should be looking at that too, because you don't want those problems to come back to you later. Just something to suggest. Okay, let's keep on going. Any questions about repairs and how to do repairs? No? All right. Amendments. Some of them are questionable. I'll be like, oh. Okay.
So basically just be very detailed.
Correct. And use the report. I'm not saying not use the report. They got everything there, but you got to specify, because the language sometimes that the inspector use, sometimes it's not clear. They're getting better, but you got to make sure you set there, replace, repair, whatever. Let's say it's something not on the report. Can the buyer still ask for something to be repaired? Let's talk about that. They can. Doesn't mean the seller has to do it, but they can.
Two says must be clear and detailed. Example, licensed roofer to replace damaged shingles on rear slope. So
I probably shouldn't have put that, but it can be. You can reiterate what's already in the contract. So that licensed roofer is already in the contract, meaning that if you look at paragraph 7, it says if they're supposed to be licensed to do the repair, electrician, roofer, they got to be licensed. The contract already states that. If you want to reiterate it in paragraph 2, you can. All right, it's nothing wrong that you do that.
But what if the seller says, I'm a roofer, I can fix it?
He should have a license and he can do the invoice and give us everything, the scope of work, and give me the warranty. Hey, my cousin's a contractor. Great. If your cousin's a contractor, whatever case may be, not talking about just general repairs, he should be able to give me an invoice, a scope of work, and some warranty.
What's a general repair?
Stuff that you don't require a license.
A leak?
That's plumbing. Let's say stucco damage. Don't need a license to do stucco. Okay, that could be a general repair, but they should be practicing in the trade. We just can't get them across the street to come on, slap some stucco on. They should practice in the trade. And if they are, then we still kind of get an invoice to say, okay, hey, look, this is what they do. Let's get some type of scope of work of what they did and some warranties, guarantees into what their work is.
They could also be bonded and insured if they're an actual business.
Sorry.
Yes, they can be bond insured. They should be bond insured, stuff like that, right? All those things play into factor. All right. Okay. Anything else before we go? Because this is a huge one. I want to take some time on this. Nope. Okay, let's keep on going. Let's go to the next section. Simple. Number 3, date in paragraph 9 of the contract is changed. Paragraph 9 is what? Closing date. So if we're going to modify the closing date, then we need to go ahead and check this out, put 3 and bam, put the new date. Next one. 4, paragraph 12A1 Bravo, at least for today, is still the same. Amends the amount of the earnest money, right? Currently, if we're going to amend the amount for the earnest money, we need to go ahead and put that out there.
That's the,
I think number 4 is a compensation of the buyer's agent, not buyer's agent, the sellers.
Why did I put earnest money up there? My bad. Yeah, you're right. Forget what's on the screen there. That's wrong. So paragraph 4 is where the amount of the
Seller's concessions.
seller's compensation. All right, seller's compensation. Sorry, I shouldn't have put the earnest money up there. Section 5. In this case, we have, this is the change to a, that's wrong too on the screen. I'm so sorry. I put this class together today. I'm sorry. It was this morning. All right. Amend the 12A1C on the page. That should be the concessions. Concessions. It's not earnest money.
So number 4 is to the agent BAC, and C.
It's
number
to the
5 is
concessions.
to the seller contribution.
Yep. So 4 is to the BAC currently right now. And 5 is to the concessions. Sorry about that. This is absolutely wrong. I don't know what I was doing. Okay, 6. Cost of lender required repairs is itemized on the tax list, will be paid. So if you were going to split lender required repairs, or if somebody's going to pay for lender required repairs, this is where you could put the example here, how much was going to be from buyer, how much was going to be from seller. You could split it up, or you could be, hey, the buyer's going to pay all of it. Hey, the seller's going to pay all of it. Michael, what you got?
What's the difference between paragraph 3 and paragraph 9?
Paragraph 3 is only with the actual closing date. Paragraph 9 is based on the third-party finance addendum, where we put 14, 21 days, whatever. So in the third-party finance addendum on that second page where you say, okay, the buyer's approval, just the buyer, not the house, has to be approved within blank days. Usually it's between 14 and 21 days. So they're saying if there's a change to that in paragraph 9 and section 9, that's where you would change that. Lender required repairs. The example here is appraisal's done. They come out with lender required repairs and you're negotiating who's going to do what. Here's where you address who's going to pay, how much they're going to pay for whatever's going on, if need be.
So repairs for lender required repairs have to be done obviously prior to closing, but the contractor will be paid and split by how they can pay?
Correct. If 2 parties agreed upon how they were going to pay lender required repairs and who was going to give what and who was going to do this, that's where you're going to make that adjustment at. Let's go to 7. It says buyer has paid the seller additional option fee of blank for the extension of unrestricted right to terminate the contract on or before 5 p.m. on blank date. This additional option fee will or will not be credited towards the sales price. So you have a option period in place and you need to extend it, and we need to add 7 more days. That's where you would modify the contract for that. And you'll put an amount there to get the 7 more days.
I have a question. When it comes to option periods, how do you determine like how much y'all gonna charge somebody per day? As it listed.
They don't charge per day.
Or
It's a market-driven thing. There's no set standard. I was just having this conversation the other day with somebody, and we talked about We had a guy that was a seller from Austin. We were selling his house here, and he was from Austin. And in Austin, he wanted $4,500 for option fee. The norm down here is pretty much between $50 and $250. So it's totally out of line with our market, but he was set on it. It was during COVID. People was doing crazy things. And we had a buyer pay $4,500 towards an option fee during COVID. So the answer to your question, our norm down here is pretty much between $50 and $250. You may see stuff a little bit differently, but that's what I've also seen in certain areas or certain ways that people are charging $50 per day for an option fee. So there's no set standard. Just got to be identified what it's going to be. But the rule of thumb down here, what we've seen most likely is between $50 to $250 for the entire period, from 5 to 7 days or 5 to 12 days, whatever. It's pretty clean that way. Has anybody seen anything different?
Yeah, I was gonna say, because it gets confusing with the wording, but when I say it's customary, it's a custom here in El Paso to offer or to pay. What I see is usually $10 a day. That's why I think you were asking per day, but it's just a custom. It's not a requirement. It's not a rule. You can set that. You can even sometimes set the option money higher than the earnest money, and that gives you more of a assurance that buyer is serious. So there's just different ways of doing it, but it's just customary here to do around $10 a day. That's what I've seen.
Depending on sales price.
Has a lot to do with it too. All right, a lot to do it with too.
To extend, how much do you can be zero, or it has to be like a minimum of $1 to extend the option period?
My practice is there has to be a amount for consideration to extend. $1, $5, $10, whatever. To put zero in there, there's nothing to consider. And the way it words is you have to have consideration.
Okay.
So if you've agreed on the initial portion of being $100 for the 10 days, cool, no problem, right? Now I need to get an additional 6 days, but there's got to be a dollar amount in there to get those 6 days.
What if in the situation where the seller forgets that their utilities were off? So they said, we're going to go ahead and allow you guys to extend your option another 7 days. This says buyer pays, but it's not the buyer's choice to extend the option period. It's the seller's.
Buyer had to pay.
So zero is no.
You're
All
saying
right,
the
let's keep on.
wants to extend the option?
Seller wants to
Sorry.
extend. It's the seller's fault. The utility's not on. They said it was gonna put the utilities on. They never put them on. We're at day 7 of the 10 days and they still ain't put the utilities on. Buyer says, okay, we need to extend. Seller says, hey, can we get an extension? She's asking who pays? Buyer. Buyer still pays. I know exactly what she's asking. Who pays? Buyer still pays.
Yeah, it's because I couldn't hear the question. Sorry.
Yep. Okay. Again, remove the word fair. Okay.
How bad somebody wants.
But on here, Ben, can't you make it to where it's accredited to the sales?
Yeah, you can.
I guess it
You can
wouldn't
set-
matter,
yeah.
but at least
Yeah, it says there, option to be, will be accredited or not accredited. You can, it says there.
What? I've never checked off will not be credited. What does that mean?
Me-
Where does that money go?
If it's not credited,
Yeah.
just treat it like a regular option.
just sell it. Good questions.
Well, previously there was like, people having confusion about giving it to the sellers, the listing agent, or to the title company.
Yeah, they've cleared that up. It's got to go to the title company.
Always title.
Yeah, because back before we used to have to give it to the seller, written out to seller and stuff like that. Whatever. But now I'm glad they cleared that up. I used to hate that. Buyer waives the unrestricted right to terminate the contract for which the option fee was paid. So if the buyer at some point in time, let's say you start off, scenario B, we originally had a option fee in it and all of a sudden the buyer just wants to waive that option fee, the option period. That's where you put that. 9, this is about the third-party finance addendum. If there's going to be modifications to that for the buyer's approval, remember the third-party finance addendum talks about the buyer's approval, and it talks about what approval? The home, the buyer and the home. All right, that's the process you got to go through in this thing. Not just the buyer's financing, but the home too has to be approved. Okay, and then other modifications. All right, here's where we go. Let's get into this one. I'm going to get off the screen for a second here. I'm going to pull the other one up here. So other modifications. Name changes, names add, legal descriptions, other modifications. What is the actual definition? Read what it says there for other modifications.
Real estate brokers and sales agents are prohibited from practicing law.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about each thing. So let's say we get in negotiations and initially on the contract, there was no home warranty placed in the contract, got removed, all right? You're the buyer's agent, you asked for $700 for the home warranty, and then the seller took it out, you guys still execute it, now we execute the contract without the home warranty. We get into the negotiations, and now because of the negotiations with repairs, and now the seller say, I'll offer home warranty, right? This would be an example there. Okay, hey, seller will pay for home warranty of buyer's choice up to $700, just like the contract has in the contract, right? We're just going back and saying, hey, look, we're going to add this home warranty. Sometimes that will save a deal. Initially, when things started to happen, we just did one with Silver Point. And what we put in Silver Point was that seller will pay for a home warranty of buyer's choice up to X amount. And then we specified roof, what's it, the roof upgrade. There's an upgrade for the roof. Look right behind you, Mike. So if you look at these, and you got to, sometimes this has come to negotiation factors. Okay. This one says, okay, for the upgrade for limited roof leak. For this one, on this one, it's an upgrade on the basic plan for $100. So the basic plan cost $515, and we put in there limited roof leak for the additional $100. So we raised it up to $615 because we had some roof stuff on the inspection report. I want to bring this to your attention because I don't think we use these enough, because sometime in the negotiations, you might just get a home warranty to cover something wrong with the refrigerator. We can get that covered and add the home warranty. All I'm saying is don't forget this, because sometimes it can help you in your negotiations. I recommend that you get seller's coverage too, because now when we get to repairs, and if it's in the seller's coverage, guess what happens? They can exercise the home warranty and get stuff repaired on the seller's coverage. And what I mean by that, you go and take a listing and you get the seller's coverage from AAA or whoever case may be. While it's on the market, if it's got seller's coverage, they will go in and make the repair. So keep that in mind. Every home warranty company is different, but I think it is something that you should know as an agent, that you should try and give yourself leverage towards negotiations. So if you take a listings and you do this, you should talk to your seller, say, hey, look, let's offer a home warranty now. We can get the seller's coverage when we place on the market. So if they do ask for this, guess what? They'll come and fix it. And at closing, the home warranty company get paid. So there's some ways you can use that to your advantage. Let's go to the next one there. The next one there, I think I put, and there's so many different things you can put in here. Seller to remove all debris and personal items prior. Now I know several of y'all has been in situations where you, at closing, there's things hadn't been moved, they didn't move out properly and all this other stuff. To prevent some of that stuff, you can clearly put it into the amendment to make sure there's stuff is removed. If you wanted to sit there and say this, the home had to be professionally clean, you could put in this modification, right? All of the stuff you guys think of is, if it's not taking away or restructuring the actual contract, this is where it's going to go. I'm just giving you some examples of the latest things I've had with agents.
Ben, can you put it in the contract up front where it has, yeah, and then right there, can you put those items there?
You could sometimes. I don't want there to be a practice there, but it could be. Why not a practice? Because a lot of people will just be putting everything in there that has no business probably being there. If you're talking about debris and personal items, yes. If you're talking about buyer final walkthrough 5 days prior, yes, of course. Things like that could be in that section that you're talking about. A professionally clean. That's where you should have it there.
What if like in seller says that they're gonna give you an allowance for carpet or something?
It can be there. It could. If they got the advertising in there and in the MLS, it's saying, hey, they're advertising $1,500 carpet allowance, and now you're writing the offer, it could go in that. Let's pull it up. Let's see. Actually, let me go to, I should be able to get it, huh? Unless I have a password right. Give me a second, I gotta pull it up. I don't remember the exact location. Does anyone have one? You pulling it
I
up?
think if you scroll down on the search, it should pull up on the track.
Yeah, but I have to log in. I'm trying to get it fixed real quick. It's okay, I'll pull it up.
Page 5, paragraph 7.
Can you read it?
Acceptance of property condition as is means the present condition of the property with any and all defects and without warranty, except for the warranties of title and the warranties in this contract. Buyer's agreement to accept the property as is under paragraph 7D, 1 or 2 does not preclude buyer from inspecting the property under paragraph 7A, from negotiating repairs or treatments in a subsequent amendment, or from terminating this contract during the option period, if any. Check one box only. 1, buyer accepts the property as is. 2, buyer accepts the property as is, provided seller, at seller's expense, shall complete the following specific repairs and treatments.
And if you want to put, it needs to be clean, all the stuff we're talking about, you could do some of that stuff there to specify. You good, Mike?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. I tried to think some stuff that we had recently. This one just came up recently. At closing, $5,000 of seller's proceeds to be held at the title company for the completion of agreed repairs. Disbursement of funds shall be to contractor X. If you're going to have that, guess what you got to have from contractor X? Invoice. So contractor X, and pursuant to the title company's escrow holdback procedures and written instructions. When you get to other modifications, come talk to me. I'll try and help you out as much as possible, because a lot of things that you may want to modify may fit in this section. If it's law, we're not going to do it. All right? If it's a practice of law, we're not going to do it. Simply put. Questions about this? Anybody has something that they want to talk about in this section?
And AJ giving up part of their commission to help their client.
Yes. But I say
Talk to
yes and
Ben.
no, because it depends on if that's, if we got it in, if it's the buyer's agent, right? Yes, and it's in paragraph 12, yes, because it's part of the contract. If it was the listing agent, no, because it's just going to go down to the title and the broker. So that's what I'm saying, yes and no. So if there's a portion of the commission going towards the buyer's agent and it's inside paragraph 12, now we have to change that, and we could put that in this modification. Anything else? Okay, I thought we was going to have that. A lot of stuff on it. All right. Let's finish this up. Are you about ready to land the plane? Land the plane. Okay, so we know how to write an amendment, correct? Good. Okay, little reminders. I think we talked about most of this. Building rapport with the other party's agent. That's always a real important thing. Make sure at the very beginning of this, you ask the right questions. At the buyer's presentation and listing presentation, I think that's important too. Control your emotions. Do not get emotional into this process. Don't matter how, what, keep your emotions in check. Yeah, sometimes you want to choke some people, but don't let that display. All right, why are you laughing?
I remember my first deal. I had to call you. You was like, calm down.
Oh yeah.
I've been doing this for this long and you knew.
Yeah, just remain. All right. Also, I got to tell you, when you come to talk to me, and I need this from y'all, you got to tell me. I don't remember. You got to understand there's 70 of y'all, right? So I talk to a lot of people a lot during the day. So if you talk to me about something 2 days ago, don't mean I remember it today. Okay. So you got to start off with, okay, hey, look, I'm representing the seller because I got to put a different hat on. I got to put the buy, whatever this looks like. All right. And you got to tell me a little bit about what's going on. Don't assume I just know. All right. Please do not do that. Because I'm like yesterday with Eileen, we talked and we had just talked about the deal, didn't we? Like literally
Yeah,
like,
not 2 days ago.
and I couldn't remember nothing and anything. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember now. But please keep in mind, I'm kind of reset. I'm trying to see where the angle we need to be as a representing the client. I need to know all the details. Sometimes I'm asking questions and give me time to ask questions because I'm trying to see what type of mindset I got to be in. And sometimes with some of y'all just be going, and I'm like, time out, pause. Let me ask a question, please. Okay.
Sorry.
Say what?
So how do you handle with your buyer? Because they said if they don't want to do the repairs now, but after the appraisal comes, it's going to be a mandatory repair. Can we just wait until we have the appraisal?
Glad you brought that up. So on the buyer side of that, if I'm representing a buyer and seller says, hey, I don't want to do this repair. Yeah, there's ways to make sure that it comes up as an item. You can drop that seed with the lender in such a way to say, hey, we're concerned about this with the house. And it could be dropped to the appraiser. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be guaranteed it's going to be on there as a lender required repair, but I am saying if you drop the seed there, it could be something that was inspected a little bit more, possibly. Now, from the listing side, depending on the repair, I'm probably going to recommend to my seller not to make any repairs until after the appraisal report comes out. Just depending. If it's something going to take a while, and we'll get it done. But I will want to see if the house is going to appraise. Because if it doesn't appraise, I'm questionable about the price. I may have to hold off. Let's wait this thing out till the appraisal comes out. If it appraises, now we're going to go gun ho and try and get all the repairs done. And make sure you line it up with their contractor. As you get into this a little bit more, you'll probably have some contractors you can rely on. If the appraisal comes out, it's good. Can you get this done in 2 days? All right. Can you make sure you're available for me? And so appraisal comes out and I got a guy standing by. Hey, now go do what you got to do. In 2 days, we get it done. Let's get the people out to inspect it. Let's do that. You got to get some timing in there.
How would you write that on an amendment?
What?
I'm the buyer's agent. I asked the listing agent,
You
I want these, or buyer wants these fixed. Seller comes back and says, I'm not going to do any repairs until after appraisal.
No, that's not going to be written nowhere.
You're basically declining to do the repairs and then.
No, you're not going to write that anywhere. That's not going to be no place written. No. You can't do.
You're basically keeping your seller.
But no, you're doing like, if this happens, I will do this. You can't write that in. That can't be written. If that, then this. Okay, finalize the amendment. So to finalize everything, all parties got to sign the amendment before the end of the option period, right? To formalize it. And I shouldn't say before the end of the option period. That's when we would like everything to be done, but there still can be things done after the option period. Once signed, the executed amendment must be sent to the lender and to title for processing. You got to make sure everybody gets it. You got to track the repairs. No repairs have to be done until closing. You should have some communication back and forth with the listing agent, buyer's agent about what's going to happen, when it's going to be happening. That's your job as an agent to make sure you stay in communication what's going on. I know people have TCs and things like that in different companies. I always do put the listing agent or buyer's agent on it, even though I'm talking to the TC or whatever. That's okay, but they're going to be on all communication, right? Follow up on the repairs, completions, to ensure everything is agreed upon. I like to have the inspector go back for a re-inspection of the repairs. The same inspector to inspect it. I had send them back out there to bless off and say, okay, it's okay. That's what I like to do. It does come with a cost, right? I think it's the safest thing to do. You going out there and you saying, hey, these repairs are good is a big old no. You don't have the skill set. You're not trained. You don't want to be in that crosshair about saying, hey, this repair is good. The buyer would say that, or the inspector. Okay. This is the process. Deals are made or broken in this process. The better you are for this process, the better you will be as an agent. Okay. You can't run away from this process. I know how it is when you first start. People are like, oh, I don't want to. If you have that approach, you have that mindset, it's going to be bad. But if you take the approach like, hey, let me get great at this, right? Or I am great at this. You got to take this on. The minute that you start to have a mindset that you don't want to do this, you've lost already. I can't stress that enough, because deals are made and broken on this process. Questions, comments? All righty. Okay, we'll land the plane. Thank y'all for being here. I know it's lengthy, but this, you can't, there's no way to shorten this up. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Hello, lady, officially. How you doing?
Good.
Glad you're back.
Yo.
We got to get you squared away.
Yes. If you don't mind, I go to the restroom.
Sure, yeah.